Don't we all have a working while Black story that needs to be shared? What are the ways that racism and white supremacy affect us in the workplace beyond just our performance and our ability to move up in our respective professions? And are we helping ourselves by sharing our stories, both in standing in solidarity and working together to dismantle the injustices we face every day? Well, I'm glad you asked because we're about to talk about it after the break.
Brokers, welcome to another episode of Brokers, where we talk about the unbelievable ish this country has done to keep us broke. Now here are your hosts, Amber and Erika.
Hey everybody, I'm Amber.
And I'm Erika.
And on this episode of Brokish, we are talking about working while Black. Can I get an amen and amen again?
I think if you say amen, that's like you agreeing to it. And I just feel like working is anti-Black. So I feel like we should not have to do it. So
fair enough. Fair enough.
Amen.
Well, we're going to have an amen to sharing our testimony. So today we are joined by two very special guests, the co-founders of To Be Us Productions, who put together a fantastic documentary called To Be Us. To work. And it's basically Black people sharing their stories about things they've experienced working while Black in America.
Oof. I have so many stories. I wish they would have called me because I have so many stories and so many tears that weren't mine.
Yes.
From work.
Yes.
And I would love to share those stories.
Yes. So, listen, I am looking forward to this because I think a lot of us suffer in silence at work. Absolutely. And so I'm glad that we get to talk to some people today who have sort of pulled the Band-Aid off so we can all know, child, we in it together.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. Now, what you been doing, sis? How you been doing?
Well, so Amber, y'all might remember when I was telling y'all the last time that I found out I got a new brother.
You ain't got no more siblings, do you?
No.
Oh, well, I was like, girl.
Not this time. Hopefully the man is done.
Okay.
But so now we are all like planning this sibling meetup, right? So we're all like, where do we go to have our first meetup? Because, my sisters, we're all going to Houston. My sister's having to go to Houston. The other kids live there. So today my brother was like, well, a little bit of background. I think my daddy and all the women he met at the post office, right? Because he used to work there and so did they. So in Houston, that what used to be the downtown Houston post office has been made into this entertainment space where you can go and eat and hang out. And so now my brother's like, well, why don't we go there? And I feel like that's going to the scene of the crime and I'm a victim and I don't want to go. So do you
think that's freaking hilarious.
So that's the latest thing in the sibling group chat is, are we going down to the post office where it all started? So
are y'all gonna bring y'all's mamas too?
Look, no, we're not doing that to those ladies. Yes.
Oh,
so
boy.
For anybody who's in Houston, if y'all see us down at the post office next weekend, me and my 18 siblings, we're gonna be down there meeting for the first time. Now,
are y'all gonna have y'all shirts ready before the meetup?
I didn't get any shirts. I think the shirts might be too much. Maybe for Christmas.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I love a matching moment. So
I do. I know you do. So what have you been up to lately, Miss Amber?
I'm about to tell y'all something and don't judge me. Okay. So I have a huge trial. I'm leaving for LA on Monday. I have a 7-week wrongful death trial coming up. And I am going to be back and forth to LA over the next 7 weeks. And, I just realized about 30 minutes ago, I was like, oh, snap. My kids, this whole time I've been worried about how I'm going to get my hair done, how I'm going to keep my weave on. And I've been really in an existential crisis about my bundles. And then I realized, I was like, oh, my kids,
what's going to happen to them?
They're going to stay here where they step did it. They're going to be all right. But I just realized I hadn't made no plans, hadn't thought about them or nothing. I've been trying to book spot hair appointments for days I can fly back to town. And then I was like, oh yeah, I probably should check the calendar, make sure everybody's good. But yeah, I'm about to relocate for a little bit,
Well, if it makes you feel better, normally I would judge you, Amber, but today, right before we started taping this show, like 5 minutes before we got on, I was like, girls, I forgot y'all need to eat today. So I had to ask my older daughter to come in here and make some chicken. So that poor baby's back there with her apron on, making my chicken because I forgot about the children today. But
Speaking
anyway,
of working while Black, I hope Eden is being compensated.
look, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Let's get to the show, Amber.
Fine.
So I'm going to bring on our guests. Are you ready for their introductions?
I'm ready. So I am so excited. So let me tell y'all, one of the things I love about Brokish is so much of what we do is like truly organic. So one of my girlfriends from way back, hey Sid texted me like a couple months ago and was like, yo, I have this dope friend you have to meet. Like, he's down for the cause like you. He's got this amazing movie. This film he did with his producing partner. It's like a documentary about working while Black. And I really want to connect y'all. And I'm like, yes, girl, thank you. And so she connected us. And now, boom, we have the co-founders of 2Be Us Productions here in the building with us. We have Miss Tosca Lee and Dr. Cedrick Smith, and we are so happy to have them today. And so I'm going to tell y'all a little bit about them, then we're going to get in their business. Well, Erika is, because that is her ministry on Brokish. So I'm sorry, I said Tosca Lee. It's Tosca.
Yeah, I was going to tell you.
Thank you. So Tosca is responsible for product strategy, marketing, and revenue growth. And that's a fancy way of saying our girl Tosca knows best. And I love that. Yeah. Okay. And I see Cedrick nodding his head, which is proof that is the truth. Prior to taking this role, she worked 15 years in nonprofit management and community relations, where she was overworked and underpaid. Like, look, y'all, do we all have the same testimony?
Yes.
Tosca is a devout student of mythology, astrology, symbolism, and all things deemed weird. She is also the majority owner of a Netflix account. And when Tosca is not busy saving the world, she can be found literally hugging trees in any given park or shallow forest. She has degrees in psychology and social work from the University of Alabama. Oh, I bet you got a whole testimony about that too. And with her is the co-founder, Cedrick Smith, who is also the co-CEO. And Cedrick is responsible for overseeing the company's portfolio and production operations. Cedrick is no stranger to leadership. In middle school, he was voted most likely to be voted most likely in high school. I'm glad middle school is awkward for all of us. Prior to this role at 2Be Us, Cedrick served as managing editor for Uzuri, an African-inspired fashion magazine. He went on to work as a writer and producer for The Money Lady Show and was co-writer of the critically acclaimed book, I Can't Afford to Marry You, a guide to understanding the true cost of love, with author Marilyn Logan. I feel like Erika would love this book.
Look, we were talking about it before the show, and I'm already on board. Like, look.
In his free time, Cedrick enjoys dreaming of being a good salsa dancer, collecting comic books, dominating his peers in golf, fighting for the rights of the marginalized, boom, boom, and telling anyone who will listen that he was varsity quarterback for the Dallas Carter Cowboys the year before they won the state title.
I love that it was the year before. That's my favorite part.
And he know my cousin, y'all, because my cousin played on the championship team. So Cedrick is my cousin. The other Cedric. Hi, Cedric. Yeah. And Dr. Smith is a graduate of the Real HU, Hampton University, and went on to attend the University of Texas Medical Branch at Galveston, where he earned a Doctor of Medicine degree. And so together, this dynamic duo forms 2Be Us Productions, and they filmed their first documentary, 2Be Us, to Work, and it highlights Black people's dealings with systemic racism in the workplace. And we are so happy to have you all here with us today to talk about your film, to talk about how it was birthed, and to give us information on how we can find it. And so, Erika, before we all start testifying, because y'all, so I watched this, and you know how, just real quick, You know how after you kind of like watch Roots and you go to work the next day, like I was at work today, y'all, them white people, I was like, I'm not able. I'm going out of town, money. I cannot do it. No, like I had, it was all in me because I was like, I probably
you had the spirit of empowerment. You watched the documentary came out with the spirit of empowerment.
I had the Roots spirit all on me. I was like, I probably should have took off today because, you know. But anyway.
Well, y'all, before we do jump into the documentary, and certainly we want to hear all about it, I do want to just find out more about, you know, we like to ask who your people are, right? Like, so tell us where you're from, where you're living, just what you want us to know about your personal life. Like I said, you know, I just found out I have a new brother. If you have something like that, that's also cool. So whatever you want to share. But Tosca, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Again, and thank you so much for inviting us. We love talking about our film. And I just want to say that, you know, if you were angry after watching our film, then, you know, that's good enough for us. That's the cost of admission. People should be angry afterwards. But yes, so I'm Tosca Davis, and I am from Mobile, Alabama. That's along I-10. So I just traveled about 7 hours to the west 20 years ago in 2002, and I'm now living in Houston, Texas. As previously told, I've been working in nonprofit. Well, I don't work right now, but I had worked in nonprofit for a very long time, and even when I worked in corporate America, I still worked in the community relations department. So I've always, you know, wanted to help people. I was a social worker initially, and that didn't work out. I think I was a little too sensitive to be a social worker, so that was a short stint. Like you said, I love film. I love anything that takes me out of my body, but literally, like I like to daydream. I like to dream. I like to be creative.
Love that.
Yeah, there's not a big leap from loving mythology and symbolism to loving film, because that's what film is, right? Characters and stories. And that's what we have in common as humans is mythology and stories. That's what makes us different from animals. So I would say that's my passion. It's just storytelling and actually, you know, watching film and watching television. And I would say that's what I love to do more than anything in the world. And then second would be, you know, nature. I love nature. I go hiking a lot. I'm always in a park somewhere. And that soothes me and heals me, really. And I love it. So I guess that's all about me right now.
I love that and everything you said. And you mentioned astrology. I'm like, Tosca, do you do readings, girl? Can me and Amber get like our reading after this? Like what?
I'll say this. I am I've taken astrology classes. That's not my major skill set, but I have done readings for my friends. I do tarot. Now I do tarot. That is my strong skill set because that's about symbolism, also strong symbolism. So yes, I can do an astrology reading. You know, but I don't call myself an astrologer. I just want to be clear. I'm a student of astrology. I do call myself a tarot reading because I do tarot reading.
Okay. I think she was saying maybe one we could get for free and one we would have to pay for. But it's okay. It's okay. That's all good.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, tarot you have to pay for. Astrology, I can do a mini astrology reading. Go ahead.
That is hilarious. She said, while we're talking about work, one I do is work and one I don't.
Okay.
Right.
So, Cedrick, what about you? Tell us more about Cedrick.
Yeah, you can tell the reason why I'm so happy that Tosca is my business partner and co-founder by her introduction of herself. I was born in Houston. We lived here, I think, for about a year and then moved to Silver Spring, Maryland. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. And then after a year in Silver Spring, Maryland, we moved to Dallas, Oak Cliff area where my dad was transferred. He had a position with the U.S. Office of Education at the time. Grew up in Dallas. I mean, I'm pretty much, Dallas bred. I went to elementary school, Adele Turner Elementary, Atwell Junior High School.
Oh, here we go.
I went to Adele Turner for kindergarten, and then they found out I was using my grandparents' address, and I got.
not the address hustle, but I understand. And then I went to Atwell Junior High School, and then I went to a school that many people have heard of, Dallas Carter High School. I mean, Tosca always calls me Uncle Rico because I'm always talking about how I play quarterback at Dallas Carter.
Okay, so we need to tell people. Wait, Cedrick, we need to tell people who Uncle Rico is from the Napoleon Dynamite. You know, who could have made? He would have gone to state. He would have gone to state if Coach would have put him in. If Coach would have just put him in, he would have gone to state. Okay, go ahead.
Right. Yeah, I'm the reason why they didn't go to state my year. So anyway, and then after that, I also was a big junior golfer in Dallas back in the early 70s and 80s. And that was really my passion. And from there, I played a lot of junior golf tournaments, which was as popular as it is now with, the Tiger Woods and all that kind of stuff. And then I gave up football after playing at Dallas Carter, was recruited for football. Brother played at the University of Michigan, had a conversation with me and was like, look, dude, unless you want to eat, drink, and sleep football, I don't think it's really going to kind of fit your personality. So I ended up applying to Morehouse in Hampton, got into Hampton and Morehouse, called Morehouse and asked them, did they have a golf team? Because I felt like I did want to have an athletic outlet. And they said no. And then Hampton had just started a golf team. I sent them my golf resume, and they gave me a scholarship to go to Hampton on a golf scholarship. One of the best decisions I made in my life.
Wow.
Ended up being an All-American 2 times. Had a great career in golf and wanted to be a professional golfer. That was my passion. Being a black dude in the United States of America with 2 parents that, you got brothers and sisters who are doctors too. They kind of like doctor, lawyer, engineer. And they were kind of like, look, you majored in biology. This golf thing is cool, but, we think you need to seriously consider going to medical school, which at the age of 21, I just didn't have the courage to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go play golf. I didn't. I went to medical school. It was a struggle. I have to be honest with you. It was a struggle because I think there's something to be said about, a dream that's deferred. And the trauma of navigating that, even though you're able to do something pretty good, that's where your passion lies. That's where your dream is. And unfortunately, being a black man in America or a black woman, those are the kind of decisions you have to make at a 21-year-old to kind of go, what's this kind of safest route to go? I'm a practicing physician now. I do very good at that, but am so excited about the formation of 2BS Productions with Tosca in 2019, the subsequent making of a film. We both have a love for TV, film, storytelling. I'm both right brain and left brain, which is good. So couldn't be more excited about our first film, which is an award-winning film, winning a film festival in our first, with our first film, and also validating the stories of what we experienced in working while black. So that's kind of my story.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So tell us, how did y'all birth this baby? How did it come to be? What made you all say, these are the stories we want to tell, telling what it's like to work while black in America?
Okay. I think I want to share this answer, Cedrick. I'm going to tell my story. There are a couple of reasons why we wanted to tell this story, tell these stories, and created this production company. One reason was my own personal story. I think around I think it was 2014. I was working for this nonprofit named Planned Parenthood Gulf Coast in Houston, Texas. And I was Facebook friends with one of my coworkers. And I posted a Facebook post about white supremacy and whiteness. And that coworker, which her name is Larissa Lindsay,
I think Tosca about to give her social security number.
We call names on Brokish. I love it.
Hey. No, we do. That's why we made the film. Yeah, that's why we made the film. To call out the culprit. We're not protecting them anymore. So Larissa Lindsay she printed my Facebook pages and she took them to my manager, who was also the vice president of human resources. And so the reason why I want to tell you that is because we're talking about brokish, right? So if you are printing off Facebook pages to give to my manager, then it sounds like your intention is to get me fired. Yep. And if your intention is to get me fired, then that's a very violent action, because you are saying, I don't want you to pay your rent, your mortgage, your car note. I don't want you to eat. That is what you were saying. Okay. I want you to know that this is a woman whose phone number I know. I've been to her home. Okay. So I just want to be clear. This is someone who had access to me, could have, pulled me to a side and say, hey, was it not that it would have mattered? I don't regret doing it whatsoever. Right. This is before George Floyd. This is before all people were speaking out about white supremacy. I'm not that person. We're going to talk about white people. We're not going to even use 6F and any of that stuff. I call white people because that's what they are. I don't understand why they get all up in arms. They are white people. So anyway, we had a meeting where they wanted to share the tension. It was both my fault and her fault, and we need to come to an agreement. They didn't know how to handle me. Okay. So anyway, I quit.
Did she cry? Did she cry, Tosca? I've had so many, and they were all white women cry at work over things that happened. Did she cry?
She did not cry, but she didn't know what she was talking about in the meeting. I'll say that she likened me posting something about white supremacy to saying that all Mexicans love tacos. She literally said this in the meeting because I wrote it down and I gave it to the EEOC because I took it to the EEOC. And so she did not know what she was talking about. She said that she was very versed in anti-racism and discrimination. And of course she wasn't. The part that I always leave off that Cedrick reminds me, maybe a few months before that happened, I had gone to a Planned Parenthood conference, and I think Washington, D.C. I think that's where, yeah. And in that, most of that conference was about anti-racism, and we talked about white supremacy. We talked about all of those things.
And this was a long. You said this was like 2014, 2015, so this was a long time ago. Wow.
Yeah, right. So I mean, that doesn't exclude Planned Parenthood from being a racist organization. They're being sued right now. But anyway, it was discussed. It was discussed. We were in conferences. We were in training. I get back to my local office, and here's Larissa Lindsay saying, "Oh my God, you're talking about white people. What are you talking about?" So that's that was one of the reasons why we wanted to make this film. I had held that for too long, and I'm not one of those people who let bygones be bygones. I feel like the white people, when they are racist, they need to be they need to pay for that. They need to pay. They have we need to get reparations for that. And since no one ever apologized to me, no one ever reached out to me, I said I was going to spend the rest of my days calling Larissa Lindsay out and Planned Parenthood of Gulf Coast out. And so that's one of the reasons why we made the film. It was we wanted to make sure people are able to talk about their experience in the workplace. And I'll let Cedrick talk about the other reasons why we made the film.
Yeah.
Is Cedrick frozen? Okay, go ahead.
In 2019, I was involved well, prior to 2019, I had been involved in a lot of activist type work around criminal justice with Trayvon Martin and so forth. And I would go to meetings when I was first learning about organizing and so forth and what it all entails, and just sit my butt in the back of the room and listen. I may have been one of the people in the room that had the most privilege. I would sit there and just kind of say, I don't know what I'm talking about, so let me shut up, but let me listen and see where I fit in. After being a part of an organization, the Houston Justice Coalition, and being an integral part of that, and kind of learning my way and getting more active and more involved, I found myself going to certain spaces where the culprit wasn't called out, where we sort of nuanced it, where you had allies there that we made the conversation more palatable. And you would come away feeling, and it's not all spaces, there were some, and you would come away with the feeling like, why are we, mincing words? Why are we trying to be palatable when we're actually being killed out here, right? And so as that progressed, those experiences progressed, I went to see a film that discussed patriarchy and masculinity. And in that film, there was no mention of rape culture. There was no mention of toxic masculinity in the sense of a real interrogation or examination of it. Not to say it was a bad film. I'm not here to judge it. But for me, if you're going to tackle that type of topic, I think it is incumbent upon those who are putting it together, in my opinion, of an assessment of the film, that you have to explore those conversations. So after that experience, Tosca and I were in a car, and we're just driving, and we were kind of talking about her experience with Planned Parenthood and our shared experiences, and going to some spaces where we weren't calling out the culprit. And I just looked over to her and said, hey, why don't we just kind of tell the stories ourselves? Why don't we form a production?
I love it.
And she was just like, yeah, obviously, as you know how excited she is about being a storyteller, she's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. And we took the steps from there to formulate the idea, the mission, the ethos, if you will, of our production company. And the way the name came about, and I'll just add this, is that we were coming up with all sorts of names. As you know, Tosca just talked about, tarot reading and her affinity for astrology and so forth. So we had all these Leo Moon Productions and Ebony Productions.
We're both Leo Moon.
Yeah. Black Horse Productions. We had all different names. And we were getting kind of frustrated in the meeting, pre-formation of the company meeting. And I just leaned back in the chair. I'll never forget. I just said, y'all, I just want people to understand what it's like to be us. And then Tosca goes, that's it. And I'm like, what?
What?
He said, to be us. And we were like, to be us. To be us Productions. To be us Productions. Mulled around for a little bit, but we kind of knew organically that's what stuck. And it just made sense. And that's how it was birthed. And then trying to figure out what your first film would be was a little difficult. So you're trying to figure out, what do you want to do? A love story? Do you want to do a comedy? Do you want to do this? And to Tosca's being centered around her experience, she said, Cedrick, I just know that, Black people have a working while Black story. We know that there's not going to be a dearth of stories out there. There's going to be a number of people that have that experience. The only difficulty we felt that we probably have is that when you start talking about the kitchen table conversations that we have, which is where we kind of leave most of these conversations, we talk about this. Could we get somebody to tell that on film?
Yes.
Could we get somebody to be that vulnerable? And fortunately, with all the pre-production work that we did and going out to Black spaces and dialogue with people, thankfully we were able to get who you ultimately see on the film, which we could not be more proud of how the product turned out. And that's kind of, in a nutshell, how we started it.
So I love that. And if y'all don't mind me saying, I took a lot from what you were just sharing, but I feel like our stories might be the same in the sense that I had a corporate career, but just didn't feel like my heart was all the way there, right? So I am now like this student of sociology, and I'm so encouraged by y'all because I feel like you also said, I'm not really, Cedrick, we know that being a doctor is still paying off bills, but that was actually one of the good things about me sort of starting on my second career, is that I can kind of fund this thing from before, but it's been so liberating and it's been so hard, but I appreciate that. And I love that in your stories. I don't know if that's what you meant to communicate, but that's what I got just from listening to the things you shared.
Yeah. So one of the things that I was really surprised about, and you mentioned this, Cedrick, is how freely you all got people to speak, because everybody is not a Tosca, even things that I think about now, when I think about my own working while Black stories, I instantly get a little anxiety at the thought of sitting and just telling it like it is. So how did you all curate that kind of safety where you got people? Because one of the things you all will notice when you watch the film, because you definitely should watch it, you can feel the emotion. You have people that are crying, and then you can look in people's eyes. You know how when you are telling a story and you are mentally back in the place where it happened, and like for me as a trial lawyer, so I'm looking at people all the time like, they lying. That's not true. And I felt myself being like my grandma, like, that man didn't make that up. That man ain't lying. I know that man ain't lying, because you could see like in people's eyes, like them going back to the place, experiencing the things. And it takes so much emotional safety to be that open with people when you know you're being filmed, when you know it's going to be shared with the world. And so how did you get people to delve into their trauma and share it so freely with y'all while y'all were making the film?
Okay, I think I want Cedric to to also answer. Excuse me. I want to tell you my experience is that I was very shocked at how coherent people were, how they were able to tell a story. We did not know what they were going to talk about until we were filming. We had no idea what they were going to say. We knew that we wanted to have a safe space for them. We knew that when they were looking out at the camera persons that they saw Black people. We filmed in a historically Black theater. We wanted their entire experience to be Black. We wanted them to feel safe. We also told them that we would not be, anything they want to talk about. We wanted to hear it. And so I feel like that gave them the go ahead to, just give us the information. The other thing is, and I'll say this, as someone who's been a volunteer coordinator forever, one of our rules as a volunteer coordinator is most people don't volunteer until you ask them. And I believe they don't. People are like, oh, well, I guess I could volunteer. No one asked me before. I feel like that's what happened here. I feel like no one had asked them a Working While Black story. I feel like we have these conversations with our friends and our family, and we just talk or whatever, but no one said, hey, can you tell your Working While Black story on film? And I guess people were like, okay. I never thought about it. Cedric did a lot of background work, and I want him to talk about his experiences with people who said they didn't have a Working While Black story.
Yeah. And to a point, in creating a safe space, there was a lot of pre-production work that has to go on. Even when I was researching, like Tosca told, the kind of researching of trying to get stories, because we know where we were going to cultivate these people from. There are people who agreed to be on the film who ultimately didn't do it. There are people we had no idea that were going to show up to the film because we've been on radio stations, in churches, in Black spaces, recruiting, who showed up day of filming and told their stories that day. It wasn't a screening process of like, can you tell us your story and what happened? And then we're going to try to decide what stories we like. That didn't happen. Whoever showed up that day got to tell their story on film. In the pre-production stage that Tosca talks about, I literally had a Black book with a pen, and I would go to restaurants. I would go to lounges. I would go to bars. I mean, imagine going to a bar, you got this Black book. And I would
Cedric.
Oh, listen, yeah. And I would literally go up to them and say, excuse me, I'm doing a research project. I wouldn't tell them I'm doing a film because, once you start telling somebody you're doing a film,
yes,
there can be a little bit of priming for performativeness, if you will. And I would say, hey, you know what driving while Black means, right? And everybody would shake their heads. I said, what if I said working while Black? And what does that mean to you? Well, if there were a group of 5 people, 4 people would say, you know what? I do have a story. And then the 5th person would kind of go, no, I really don't have a story. No. And invariably what would happen as each person began to tell their story, one by one, the 5th person or the odd person out that would say, I don't have a story, would invariably say, you know what, I do have a story. And then they go on and tell the story. An interesting thing that happened to me, because you talked about surprises, what kind of surprises? An interesting thing happened is that as we were having these meetings talking about, hey, I'm getting these stories from people, I'm hearing about this, they're saying they're going to come. And I was becoming very cantankerous in meetings, I couldn't sleep very well. One is the pressure of putting a business together. That's one thing. But it was a little different pathology to it. And ultimately, I think I called Tosca at like 3 o'clock in the morning one time. I said, Tosca, I think I know what it is. I've been internalizing all the stories that I have in this Black book, because I would go to the next person the next Saturday or the next time I would see some people and tell them, hey, here's an example of a story, da, 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 da. And as I was regurgitating story after story, I was internalizing, and it was literally affecting my psyche. So that's kind of how we curated. And to Tosca's point, we were intentional about hiring Black folks, Black camera crew, a Black narrator, a Black editor. You know, these are things we were intentional because, like she said, if you're looking out at these cameras, which is hard enough and difficult as it is in and of itself to tell your story, to look out and see, you know, white faces behind these cameras and trying to tell your story, I can tell you right now, I know that was a huge part of them being more comfortable about telling the story. But me sitting next to them during the production of it and during their interviews, you can't see me on camera, obviously, but I could feel the tension, the breathing, the tapping of the feet, the nervousness of the hand movements, the, you know, staccatic breathing that they would have in preparation of what they were about to tell us, which we had no idea what that was going to be. And, you know, we are as amazed as you are who have seen the film at what they shared and how they shared it in such a coherent way.
You can feel it. You can feel it. You can feel it. And so we tried really hard when we were, you know, coming up with this episode. We don't want to ruin the movie for y'all, but I'm going to tell y'all about the part of this movie that made me so angry. The teacher from Houston who said that her white colleague came up to her, was like introducing himself to her and asked her where she went to college. And she was like, oh, I went to TSU. And he's like, oh, is that Texas Southern? And she's like, yes. And he's like, oh, well, I have a joke for you. What do TSU grads say to other college graduates? And she was like, I don't know. And the white colleague looked at her and he says, they say, welcome to McDonald's. May I take your order, please? Mm-hmm.
And we working at the same place, right? Whatever credentials you have, we ended up at the same place, and you got the nerve to say something to me.
But not only that, but I think to me, one of the reasons why that was so poignant is, first of all, I love the fact that y'all told a breadth of stories. You had blue collar people, you had professional people. But I think sometimes, particularly those of us that work certain jobs, you just assume that the racism is so insidious, like it's just undercurrent. And to be reminded that there are just people out here being blatant, tacky, overt with it, even in corporate settings, even in educational settings. Like, it is just a reminder, because I think sometimes it's very easy for us to lure ourselves into thinking we have overcome, you know, and the racism is just the thing we know in our heart when we didn't get the promotion. But when she said that, like, y'all, I'm an emotional, I paused and I went and got a snack. I was like, oh, child, I need a break.
Amber, I think it's to your point about we think in corporate spaces, I think those spaces are extra violent a lot of times. I think academia is extra violent as it relates to Black people and working there. But anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but just like anybody who thinks that, please don't. Because
no, it's oh, go ahead, Tosca. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, you know, to the listeners, the part of the movie that she is talking about, that isn't even the most egregious part of her story. So, you know, wait till you get to the rest of the story. But exactly. And I wanted to say that was our intention, to have a wide scope of Black people and their workplaces, because so much of DEI is C-suite professionals. You know, my big issue is that, you know, the Exxon Mobils and the Chevrons and the Monsantos, you know, and the oil and gas and the medical facilities, all of these, they have all these DEI statements. I'm sure if you go into McDonald's headquarters in Michigan, they have these DEI statements. I'm sure, you know, these international companies, they have these DEI statements. And when you sit back and think about all of the people that they've exploited, and you know that they've exploited all of these people of color, all of these Black people on the continent, all of these oil and gas companies, this is why I don't believe you about DEI, because I know you're exploiting some Black people on the continent of Africa while you are, you know, while you're drilling your oil and and mining your diamonds or whatever it is that you're stealing from the continent. So your DEI statement means nothing to me, because I know that only, you know, you're only adhering, quote unquote, adhering to that in the corporate offices of Houston or the corporate offices of LA, but leave the United States of America and you go to the most impoverished, places in the world, the most exploitative places in the world. And so DEI means literally nothing to me because I know you are traumatizing some Black person somewhere else.
Right.
The other
and
thing
here you probably
is
have somebody Black be the face of your DEI initiative, right? So then you're also abusing that person, right? So put us out there and be the face of your foolishness while you going out.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another thing is, even here, fast food restaurants, again, I'm sure McDonald's in Michigan, the C-suite and the attorneys and the HR people, they have this DEI going on. What's going on with the workers who are making minimum wage? No one really speaks up for those persons. Right. And something you said, violence happening in HR and academia. I think it feels more violent because people feel safe there, like you said. Yes. They feel like they have the safety of being educated, making salaries. And so I believe that's why they feel more violent. But really, the people who are feeling the violence are the people, the cashiers, the people who are working, flipping the burgers, so to say, or the persons who are nursing assistants, people who are the people who really keep the United States of America going are the people who are being exploited the most. Because again, if that didn't show you, if COVID-19 didn't show you who was keeping us running, nothing else will. And we had so many people die, so many people who have long-term disabilities from getting COVID because, let's clap for them. Let's give them pizza. Let's talk about how awesome they are. And at the same time, not protecting them. So again, DEI is a freaking joke, okay? Because you did not even protect your cashiers. You did not protect your cashiers, but I bet you protected those people in the head office. Okay, so yeah, that's how we feel about DEI.
And thank you for saying that too, Tosca, because I absolutely don't want to minimize at all like the physical violence that people, like you said, people working in retail who have to deal with all of these actual people in their faces who aren't so passive aggressive, but actually physically aggressive. So absolutely, thank you for pointing that out.
And to Amber's point, in regard to not just DEI, but C-suiters, being more violent and so forth. The reason why in our film, we had such a variety of people, which we were so glad to have, is because this was pre-George Floyd that we filmed the picture, the documentary. And people don't understand. Like after George Floyd's murder, then you had corporations. Let me hear your Black story. What's been happening to you? We're gonna open up is it okay if I say this? You're having people who want to have your ear. For us, trying to get the people to show up to a film who felt the fear of potential retaliation, the fear of reprisals, the fear of telling their story on a film that like is impetuous. They're gonna be out there to the universe per se. And they don't have the protections often that you see. Many of the articles pre-George Floyd were about actors, celebrity, and as Sasha talked about, the C-suiters and so forth. So to get this varied blue collar, if you will, to the medical professional or the person with a PhD, range of people, medical assistants. These were the people in the stories we wanted to see. And what you see throughout the nature of the film, of the documentary, is that you have many of these commonalities of experiences of the trauma and terror. And we do not we're not overstating with the use of the word terror that they were experiencing in the workplace. And so the person who watches the film to work may not necessarily see their particular story. But I tell you, Erika, you're going to see components of your experiences in there some way to say, I connected with so-and-so. Amber connected with the teacher with that particular story. Tosca's story is Ebony's story. My story was another story. But somebody along the way that we've talked to people, even in our focus groups, somebody pulled something from somebody where it struck them. And that to us having that kind of universality of the storytellers was kind of great to have for people to experience what's really going on.
And you talk about universality, and we know in capitalism, there's nothing more universal than working, right? Like, can't none of us do this thing without working, right? Like, that's how we eat. Tosca, that's why you talked about somebody coming after your job is a violent act, because you can't do that thing, right? So this universal experience, and you being able to have that broad sort of way of bringing all these people and highlighting them, I think it's fantastic. And I have not yet seen the documentary, so that is one piece of homework that I have after this. So I'm very, I feel like excited might be the wrong word, just because of the content, but I'm looking forward to seeing what you all were able to curate through all of this. But in terms of the people that you did speak with, were there any people who actually came out of an experience where they were able to be sort of triumphant, right? Like, is there any part of any of these stories where people were able to talk about the bad things that happened, but like maybe, I don't know, something good came out of it, or they were able to move in a different direction? Like, is there is there some joy that comes out of these experiences for them?
I can't think of any. I can't think of anybody right now. So you may, but I want to.
Our friend who almost committed who was having like the suicidal issues. I loved how you helped him.
Uh-oh, we're not supposed to talk about it?
No. You give up all the cookies. You give
away a lot of information.
I'm sorry, but listen,
we can bleep that out, right?
No, it's okay.
But
yes, we can.
No.
I'm sorry.
No, Amber.
No, don't apologize. Don't apologize. Don't apologize.
So I will just say, just people being the courage to reclaim themselves, like after being
yes.
Yeah. I want. Go ahead.
I was going to say.
No, go ahead, Cedrick.
There's steps to this, right? There's steps to the redemptive arc, if you will, right? It's almost like in grief, there are steps you have to go through, the 5 steps of grief, right? The denial, the bargaining, and so forth. I think what this film, To Be Us to Work, really allowed people to do was offer a validation of their stories, and that in and of itself, Erika,
yes, there's joy in that.
Is somewhat of even though it's a painful story they're relaying, there is something freeing about, I finally get to tell this story that begins the process of healing, because now you've not only identified what it is, you have been validated by these people who have curated a safe space for you to tell the story, and that is part of the healing arc, if you will. I think probably our last story.
I was gonna say right. I was gonna mention that.
She kind of sums it up. She kind of has her story, and there is some, I guess, if I wanted to use the word redemption or reclaiming of her power, of her time, if you will. And moving forward in that direction, that kind of closes the film out per se. And I think you'll find it in that. But other than that, people are literally just relaying their experiences. And that in and of itself is the first step to this kind of inner work they're going to have to do to kind of deal with the trauma and terror that they had to deal with in the workplace. If that makes sense, Eric.
I also want to add that I think more than that too, like you can tell, I think a lot of us do this. And I noticed this in the documentary as well. We feel a lot of guilt. Like, I wish I would have done this in the moment. I wish I would have said this, or at the moment when this thing happened, I didn't really do anything, because I was afraid, or I just let it slide. And what I loved is you could see that weight falling off of people while they were talking. You know what I'm saying? Like, people feeling real shame that, like, in real time, they were confronted with violence and terrorism and, microaggression and considering and choosing survival, choosing in that moment to remain silent. Like, it was so relatable to see people being freed from that guilt and that shame of, like, in the moment, I didn't do everything I thought I should have done, but just sort of feeling empowered while they're telling it now, because I feel like all of us have been in that place. Like, we go home and we
Absolutely.
relive the moment 50 times. I wish I would have told that heifer. I wish I would have said this in that meeting. I wish I would have told them. But we don't, because we're afraid. And I think we feel a lot of embarrassment about it. And
because those threats are real. Like,
yes,
whatever the threats are, right? Like, those things are not like they are real, tangible things. But the petty part of me was just like, did somebody cuss somebody out? Like, that was all, like, did somebody have a moment?
No, yeah. I mean, not cuss somebody out, but in the first story, Jonathan's first story, I think there's, that kind of starts it off. He's kind of like, I know how this shit goes. Like there's that in there, and so I mean, that's part of it as well. And like I said, it's the main focus that we had, the intentionality that we had was really around, again, I cannot emphasize this enough, offering a safe space for Black folks to tell their stories first and be heard.
And to center Black folks. I'm sorry, I have to say, to center Black folks, because there are, again, I love film, okay? I can tell that no Black people were in production, pre-production, post-production, when I watch a documentary or a film, even if the entire film is about Black people, okay? It could be, every character could be Black, and I can tell, oh, they made this for the white gays. This
Tosca,
is not for
name
us.
names again, Tosca, because we love that about you. Tell us, look, I'm like, you people, like, give us...
I can't. I won't name names, and let me tell you why I won't name names, because we're in the film industry.
Please.
Okay.
No.
But I want you to know. No. But I want you to know that I would if I was retiring today. Okay, I would because you can tell a perfect way. I'll give you the name of a show that is not made for the white gays. I'm gonna tell you why. There's a TV show called Southside. Have you ever heard of it?
Yes, I love Southside.
Okay,
love it.
Southside is not for the white gays. They have no interest in appealing to white people. And how I know that is because when I'm watching the TV show, I'm thinking to myself, this is for us. They're not explaining anything. When you watch TV shows and film, you see Black people explaining things. And when they start explaining things, that means that's for people who don't look like us. When you are just being your good old hood ass and you ain't explaining shit to nobody, that's for us. Okay. Right. That is what we wanted with this film. We wanted Black people to know that there were names for the things that they were feeling. Plenty of people I've spoken with did not know there was something called microaggressions. I did not know anything about lateral violence. I knew that was, when you look at the definition, I knew that was a thing. I just didn't know there was a word for it. Giving language to it. And one of the things that Cedrick and I decided, we wanted to make sure that we had a female narrator. We said, when you think narrator, you think Morgan Freeman, you think, just these men with deep voices. And we're like, let's do something else. Let's normalize women narrating, documentaries. Our narrator is currently, getting her PhD in social justice and equality. So she, she was able to, watch the segments and put a name to, label to some of the things that were happening. But lots of people who watched the film, lots of people who were involved in the film, they did not know there was language for the things that they were feeling and experiencing. And that was another intention. It's like, hey, you're not the only person. Not only are you not the only person experiencing this, someone labeled it. Someone named it. So often.
Liberation. That's liberation.
And that's what we wanted. We wanted our storytellers to feel liberated. We wanted to. Our last storyteller. I can't remember if it's in the film or not. At the end, she literally hunched over. She literally was crying. She took 30 pounds of stress off her body. Okay. One of our when you talk about was there any joy, one of our storytellers, not only was it the first time telling his story, his wife had not heard the story. Okay. Um, so
Wow.
he brought his wife with him, but he had never told her. And so the first time telling the story was on film. And so that was, very liberating for him also. But yeah, she had not heard anything about that. So I think those are wins. I think people releasing, lots of people took deep breaths afterwards.
Yes.
I'll say that.
While they were talking, you could see it. You could see the breath. You could see the breath. And I also want to shout y'all out for another thing. The intention on being intersectional. I love how you all, because it was very clear that there was a mindfulness that these are systems of oppression that work in tandem. And giving women the permission to move beyond just the linear, this is my racism story, but to show how a lot of these stories are nuanced and complex, and they involve, layers of sexual harassment, being sexualized as a Black woman. I was like, round of applause for that, because I think that part of it is oftentimes omitted when we talk about racism, because we forget that racism tentacles out into other forms of oppression that disproportionately affect Black women and femmes in a different way.
Right, absolutely. Go ahead, Cedrick.
I was just saying, and the fortunate thing, like Tosca said, having Lucy Sagu, who was our narrator, break those things down and explain it in a way that is, easily understood by the audience member. To literally say, no, this is the reason why at the intersection of this and this is why they are experiencing X, Y, and Z. Could not applaud her enough. We, like Tosca said, we gave people their first opportunities. Our music director, a young woman, 23 years old, I went to her and said, look, we need 2 songs. We need 2 songs. Wow. And she's like, you coming to me? Like, yes, we're coming to you. This is going to be your first IMDb credit, but we know you can do it. And, there were some changes here and there. We went back and forth with some things, but we could not be more happy with the final product of our first film. Thank you for your insights into that, Amber.
Yeah.
And I want to piggyback off something. I'm going to be a little discreet here, but there were men who watched the film who did not understand why at least one of the women in the film, their experience, how was, basically they blamed this person for their experience. And Amber, you may know who that is. And I want to say, Amber, I appreciate you picking up on our intentions because we want to protect Black women. We want people to understand that the people who have the power are the oppressors. Yes. And so many people don't understand, consent. I'm sorry, men don't understand consent. They don't understand power dynamics. And we wanted to make sure that was in the film also. And so I so much appreciate you, Amber, for picking anything you saw was intentional. Okay. Yeah. We have a value system.
Yes.
And we use that value system to guide us while making this film.
She is who I was thinking about when I said you see the weight falling off of people, like the regret they felt about what I could have or should have done in the moment. And I didn't say this or I didn't do that. She is the person I was seeing in my mind when because you could see it falling off of her. Like it was like it clicked while she was talking. Like I am not the problem. This shit is the problem.
Right.
Exactly.
This shit is the problem. You could see, it's almost like you could see it in the documentary, the moment it clicked for her, like, I am not the problem. And you could see that happening time and time again, where people were literally letting go of that shame and that fear and that regret. And so kudos to y'all, man. I mean, I really hope that this moment in time empowers and inspires other people to do the work of valuing and sharing our stories, because it is wild to me that it's not 11,226,000 documentaries like this, because I can only imagine how many stories there are. So bravo, y'all, bravo.
And that was a part of our research. Amber, to be honest with you, we researched and did not find. Look, there were books about working while Black in corporate America per se. That was there. I can't remember the author's name, but there was no film. We researched. There were some, like, if you're executive director of a labor organization that deals with like kind of EEOC issues, they would film the person telling their story per se, but it was just real crude, and it was just like, my boss did this, I'm gonna sue. It was kind of, but it didn't really delve in. It wasn't a cohesive film or documentary that really addressed the issue per se. And when we saw that, we said, you know what? I think we're onto something. Now we know there are going to be some other films that are going to be made after us. And we know that it's difficult when you do center Black people only. It's not like we made a working while people of color film.
Yes. Yes.
We didn't do that. Right?
Yes.
So there has been pushback on, like, well, couldn't you have, or I think I remember one of the
people told y'all what y'all was supposed to do for y'all movie that y'all made?
Yeah.
Okay.
like people, like some people, like, are you gonna ask white people like how they feel? And we're like,
feel free to go make that documentary.
No, we're not doing it. It is a working while Black documentary. We'll take whatever pushback we'll take. It's made, it's out there. We can rest comfortably at night with our heads sleeping on our pillows, knowing that we did exactly what we wanted to do with To Be Us to work. I mean, it's the bullseye. Sure, could we have had more bells and whistles and a bigger budget and all that kind of stuff? We're an upstart company. We're, an independent film company, so, but you're not going to find something that is going to be as compelling as our film is, that addresses an issue that we have as Black folks. And I don't care who you are, you're going to identify with it in some way, shape, or form. And we're very comfortable with that.
Agreed.
So y'all talked about working. So now what's next? How y'all going to show us being us in other areas?
We have so many ideas. That's all I can tell. Yeah. We have so many. We are behind the 8 Mile, because of COVID. I know during COVID, I have absolutely suffered mentally, cognitively, intellectually. My memory is terrible. I've aged 10 years. I know I look 10 years older than I did in 2019. And so we are just kind of behind. We do want to get started again. And to answer your question, we have ideas. Like there are some things that are really high priority. Yes. And we hope to get to them. We do. So the answer to your question is we don't know what's next, but we do know that there is a next. It was difficult. This film was difficult to market, because as soon as we were able to, as soon as it was ready, and we knew we were invited to film festivals, but COVID hit, so we didn't meet in person. Everything was online, even the film festivals were online. So you're talking to new filmmakers. We thought we were going to different cities, and people were going to be sitting in the theater, and they were going to be watching our film, and we were going to talk to the, whoever showed up. We didn't get to do that, and it's difficult for me. I am an introvert. That's not anything anybody's going to pick up on, but it's difficult for me to have relationships online. And I really thought I was going to do it in person, where I feel like I can do my best work. So it's just been really difficult for us in these last 3 years. And I am saying this and knowing that over 1 million people have died. So I'm not being dismissive of that. This is a very small problem. Okay, I'm sorry. 1 million people in the I'm sorry, where are we? In the US, right? A million years. I want to be clear that this is a very small problem when it comes to what has happened in the last 3 years. So to answer your question, is that we don't know yet, but we will definitely let you know when we know.
And you did not ask me, but just when you say that you're behind, I just don't feel like y'all are behind on anything, right? I feel like all of these things are happening and will happen when they are supposed to happen. So please don't feel like you're behind and you didn't do all the things, because again, I think that time is also anti-Black.
There's so many things that are anti-Black.
Yes. You get to this when you get to this, okay? And we'll be here when you do.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
To your point, Erika, thank you for that. You know, but there's a different dynamic that we have too with myself and Tosca. I happen to be a practicing physician. So during the pandemic, I mean, I'm going to work. I'm seeing patients. I'm seeing sick people. My phone is available to Black folks to call me and text me. I got 1,000 texts on my phone from people that they don't know Fauci. They know Cedrick from first grade at Adele Turner. And I want to hear what he has to say about this vaccine, or my mom is in the hospital. I mean, it is a drain. It has been tough mentally and
absolutely
for the both of us. And we're probably more conservative in regard to doing production while we're in a pandemic. Just by the fact that I am a physician, I can only imagine had we started on our second project and somebody became ill, I don't know how it would feel, not just as a filmmaker, but as a physician, where it's first do no harm. And that would be very difficult. So we have been very strident in adhering to restrictions, and, you know, maybe even more so than what other people are, but we feel very comfortable with that. But there is a price per se, but I'd rather have that than the alternative of what could have come out of had we gotten back into production mode sooner, if you will. I know other people are doing it. I know Hollywood's done it. They got people with masks on, all kinds of stuff. I get it. But we're very, very conservative in that regard.
Look, me and Amber still in our masks. Okay. So we get it. You are
I'm Michael Jackson for life now. I'm like, Michael tried to warn us. Michael tried to warn us, but I'm never going back to the no MJ life. I'm MJ for life.
I think I'm masked up forever too. So forever. Like, people literally didn't get the flu or a cold in the last 3 years. And I feel like we are about to wrap up, but I want to say this. We rarely get a chance to say this in podcasts. When our film was completed, we did a couple of podcasts, and I remember it was from a local person, and at the end of the podcast, he asked us, you know, what do Black people need to do? Or how are Black people going to solve this? Or what is the solution? And Cedrick and Tosca's answer is, that is not our problem. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, we agree. That's why you said solutions. I'm like, no.
No. You know, we are racialized people. You created race. You created all of this made up shit, capitalism, race, all of this. This is on you. White people need to solve this problem. I have no interest in solving this problem. I do believe a way to heal for us as Black people to heal is to become more community minded, to reject capitalism as much as possible, because we live in a system. We can't, it's very difficult to get out of it, right? We have to maneuver and we have to eat. But I feel like we need to center friendships, community, and this is going to be, people are going to roll their eyes when they hear me say this, but I feel very strongly about this. We need to decenter romantic relationships, okay? Decenter them, center friendships.
Here. Yeah.
No, okay, all right.
No.
You know, I'm not telling you not to have a romantic partner, because when people hear decenter, they're like, they're like, oh my God, you know, okay, but we need to center community. We need to take care of each other. It is, and I will say this, it is very difficult to heal in the place that harmed you. And for for Black people, that's the entire world, because the entire world is anti-Black, right?
Tosca, are you Afro pessimist? Because I just have to know. I've been getting into Afro pessimism a lot lately, and I'm
Sure.
like, I'm feeling all the vibes.
Sure. No, like sure.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult to heal here in the United States of America. Okay, and we are seeing a great exodus of people leaving the country, Black people, right? Because even though the rest of the world is anti-Black, the rest of the world does not have more guns than citizens.
Right.
Okay. And I'm not telling anybody to move from the United States of America, but I want y'all to understand that the United States of America has a capitalistic system that is different from everybody else's capitalism. American capitalism is the most egregious, most violent, most terrorist type of capitalism there is. So while we're here, or if we leave, I want people to focus on community. I want people to if they have the energy, to find skills or learn skills that may help a community. And let's go to Afro-pessimism. I am a fan and a worshiper of Octavia Butler. And Octavia Butler has taught me so much. And another thing, I now there's, a student of astrology and mythology. I am a student of, herbalism. And the reason why I started learning herbalism is because of Octavia Butler. When I read her books, how many ever years ago, I said to myself, what am I going to need if an Octavia Butler future comes? And I'm going to need to have a skill, okay? And I'm going to need that as part of my community. So my point of saying it is, it's not our problem to solve, number one. And number two, I want Black folks to reject capitalism as much as possible and put their energy into their friendships and their community. Amen. I want people to communicate and I want people to talk. And that is the only way we are going to survive, is to be anti-capitalism. That is literally the only way we're going to survive. We have to have an anti-capitalism mindset. Okay, we don't want to harm people. We don't want to exploit people. We don't want a Black Wall Street. Again, I know people are going to want to have a Black Wall Street.
Right.
Black capitalism is just fucking capitalism. Okay, okay, yeah, it's just capitalism.
There is no adjective that can redeem capitalism.
No, exactly.
No,
so I just.
No, you in the right place, Tosca. Thank you.
I'm done.
Thank you for saying all that. Last show we had, I actually had on my community shirt, right? Because that's we agree like you that community is where the problems are, not where the problems are solved, but where there's safety.
Correct.
Where there is love, where there is refuge. So we believe in what you said completely. And normally at the end of the show, I have a very short segment. It's not, it's something, we don't name it, but internally we call it unbroken, right? Because even though the show is called Brokish, at the end of the show, I try to just point out maybe some things that we can do. And a lot of time it is about community. So Tosca, thank you for doing my work for me today, girl. Because then Tosca gave y'all the unbroken segment today. Okay. She done told y'all that community is the way. Thank you very much.
Yes. So thank y'all for joining us. And before we say goodbye, tell the brokers, where they can find you all and where they can find To Be Us to work.
Yeah, well, we have a website, tobeusproductions.com, TOBEUS productions.com. That's one way you can find everything about us there, as well as our film is actually there too. Our film is To Be Us to Work, and it is on Amazon Prime, currently streaming there on Amazon Prime. Again, it's To Be Us to Work, TOBEUS, and then colon, to work, WRK. And you can find it there for streaming. So, yeah, that's where we are. That's where you can find us. You talked about our kind of in the introduction earlier. We have these kind of funny biographies that we have of us, and I hope people got the humor of that, that I was, voted most likely to be voted most likely. So we have some humor behind what we do, but we also, one of the ethos of the company is centering Black stories, centering Black creatives, and we're unabashedly about that and do it with all the vigor that we have within us to make sure that that's the intentionality of it.
And you can go to workingwhileblack.com also. Workingwhileblack.com. It has all of our social media and has a link to the Amazon Prime Video there if you don't want to do any of that. So workingwhileblack.com is another website that we have.
And listen, y'all, for the homework. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Cedrick. Go ahead.
I was just saying another thing we have is called the To Be Us experience, where you can screen the film, whether it's for corporations or institutions. It kind of was birthed out of an interview we had where the interviewer was like, hey, you know, I think every corporation and institution needs to see this. We're like, well, that'd be great, you know? So we birthed the To Be Us experience where you get to see the screen the film and you get to have a dialogue with the filmmakers. We're not DEI specialists. That's not our thing. You know, like we said before, we ain't really, you know, messing around with that. But we can be an augment to where you get to literally see the experiences of this and not have this kind of flattened, you know, we're all the same. Like, nah, this is going to show you what happened in the Black folks. And if you really want to have conversation around it and really dig deep into what the experiences are, then our film is the one for you to learn from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we believe that so much here at Brokish. Like, we want to put our money where our mouth is. Like, we want you guys to see it. And so we are going to post the link to get to the film on our website. But once this episode goes live, the first 25 brokers who comment under the post, you're going to get to watch the film on us. I mean, you know, we ain't got a lot, but we want to share the wealth. So the first 25 people who comment, we're going to cash app y'all $8. It's $7.99. And I promise you, it's going to be the best $8 you've spent in a long time. So we want to support this work because the value here, like Tosca said, is not in us changing this shit we didn't break, but in us realizing that our pain matters, our voices matter. And like the word says, we not only overcome by the blood of the Lamb, but by the word of our testimony. And so our testimonies matter. And I am so excited that we get to bring this to you guys. So we're going to post the link, and the first 25 people to comment get to watch To Be Us to Work on Brokish. So
yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. That's all.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it.
It has been so great having y'all on the show.
Yes.
Please, we want you to come back. So when you get ready, right, y'all come back and talk to us about what we know is going to be the next great thing. So, brokers, thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to catching up with you on the next episode of Brokish.
All right, good people. Thanks for listening to Brokish. For more episodes, visit us at brokish.com or subscribe, and Brokish will get direct deposited into your favorite podcast app on the 1st and 15th. Share Brokish with your friends and join the conversation on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Music for Brokish is Come Get Some by Blank and Kit. Until next time, goodbye and good luck.
They say when you wear Black Power Media gear, you can accomplish anything. You play any and every position. Coaching, to kicking, to receiving, to running and juking. And, oh my goodness, I see that again in slow motion. Get off me. And you're going to have a lot of haters coming at you, but what you got to do is you got to shake them off, and get to your goal and accomplish it. And when that's done, it's a beautiful thing. I'm talking about going hard, extra, for that extra point. And when it's done beautifully, you talking about touchdown. Oh, and the crowd goes wild and they're celebrating with you and everything. Man, let's see that again. Nice.
Black Power Media, baby. That's how we do it.
Now go to blackpowermedia.org and get you some of that gear. Empower yourself today.